you, Ann, and I extend my welcome to everyone as well. We're always very gratified when some people show up because we think we have some interesting things to say. And today's really an interesting webinar because it crosses a number of areas. We spend a lot of time talking to people who have a problem with their voicemail, their legacy voicemail is going end of life, and we get a lot of really interesting information for how they're approaching the project of replacing it, of finding the replacement and what they're looking for, and what that encompasses within their enterprise. So we're going to talk about all those elements as we look at it today. So if you think about the challenge of replacing your system, part of that comes from the fact that, probably from a voicemail perspective, you're pretty happy with what you have, but it's going end of life, which means, from a due diligence point of view, you really can't have a system that you can't keep maintained. And the various manufacturers of these systems are sending out their announcements. The Octel one was, 9 to 12 months ago, the latest version of that, and then the Modular Messaging one just recently. And basically the story is, if you have these products, and it doesn't have to be the Avaya ones, it can be it's still Avaya, it could be an older call pilot system, it can be a Centigram system, any number of those systems from those early implementing days are now basically, while they're capable enough as a voicemail, they're just not moving forward. The decision was made by the manufacturer for whatever reason to take a different direction. And so now you're in the position of having to do something. Now we just throw this announcement up because it's a very typical one, where they've announced it and now you've got some time. But if you really look at it, this means they're done. There's certainly not going to be any new features. In this case, they're talking about the support for the software by the end of next year is over. You can't buy new systems by the end of this year, but the end of the software support is really one of the challenging things where we saw so many times where software issues would come up with a change maybe in the software of your phone system that would require a change in the other software, and once it's out of active support, you're really at risk for doing that. And the same story is true, of course, on the older Octel products. This announcement, of course, has been out there for a number of years, but this one's coming up a little closer, and this one they've actually figured out what the problem is, and basically already there's a problem with announcing the origination year for messages, which is not that big a deal, but by, once again, almost the end of next year, the calendar is going to reset, which gives you all sorts of problems with it. So, like it or not, it isn't necessarily a feature drive for you, but you are going to have to look at replacing the system. So we've been doing this a long time. Had you bought our voicemail back when you bought that other one, you wouldn't be in this position because our products have never gone end of life. And that's mostly not that we're better than everyone else, but our timing was better. Our very first system was a server-based system, which meant we've been able to continue developing and growing that system over the years. And as a result, we're in a perfect space to be the legacy voicemail replacement system, and we're recognized as that in terms of that's who we are in the market. Now, we do a lot of other things besides legacy voicemail replacement. Our product does. We're going to look at a little of that today. But you can rest comfortably knowing that we've been in this market. We sold our first system in 1985 with an OEM arrangement with US West, and we have been doing consistent business and growth during that entire time. And one of the reasons is not just the technical side of who we are, but sort of the financial side of who we are. We aren't owned by anyone. We don't belong to a switch vendor or a router vendor that would cause us to focus in some specific area and be very good at that one system and not so good at connecting to the others. It's our goal to be able to connect to anything. Now, that was simple 20 years ago when anything was a phone system. And even then, we were recognized as the voicemail that could connect to more phone systems than anyone else, any phone system. And that was kind of who we were, and we liked that because it made it easy to go out and talk to customers. It made it very easy. Now, of course, our world started to get more complicated when we started looking at unified messaging and unified communications because the number of things we needed to connect to just kept growing and growing. And every new category brought in, 10 new versions of software we needed to test with. So this slide is just kind of pointing out probably 60% of our QA testing time goes to testing beyond just the telephony integration for voicemail, because there's so much people want to do in the world today with unified communications that involves connecting to outside things. Our architecture is perfect for this, We were lucky that we were founded by some data people who gave us a nice 3-tier architecture, which means we can connect to these things with minimal effect on the core operating software. But this is just kind of showing you in our world, when we start sitting down and thinking about let's build a feature, what we really have to do. And then underneath all this is a whole other layer of things we worry about, like versions of Windows and the drivers for the hardware and software pieces. So very complex interoperability, but we are recognized as the ones that do it best. Now, of course, it's also gotten harder in the last couple of years, connectivity, because where we connect now has gotten more interesting and challenging. It used to be everything we did, everything we touched, everything we connected to was locked up safely behind a firewall within the enterprise. But over the years, that's changed, and it's changed with private cloud deployments, where companies now have multiple locations scattered across the world with their own private network connecting them together. And there's connectivity issues there that we have to constantly test and make sure that we're comfortable with. It's gone public cloud, where people are now taking some of their applications and moving them out of their enterprise and having it hosted completely in the cloud. Software as a service is very popular. Now, it was interesting this morning on my drive in, I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about the Snowden leaks in the security piece, how that affected Cisco. Cisco's actually has some economic problems because lots of people now are rethinking putting everything up in the cloud. The whole security issue has made people kind of slow down and try and rethink that piece, which is really kind of leading a little bit more to sort of a hybrid cloud approach, where they're thinking some things go in the cloud, some things don't. From our point of view, every feature we engineer, we assume it needs to work within the enterprise, with a public cloud, with a private cloud, and a hybrid cloud. So whatever architecture you have today and moving forward, all of these features we're going to talk about, it won't be a challenge. Now, there's certainly challenges as you go to cloud, bandwidth, connectivity, all of that, but you're dealing with those challenges just to get there. There won't be anything unique with our product. We've been doing this a long, long time. I actually received a call the other day from our president congratulating me on being here 21 years, and I am not by any means the employee with the longest time with the company. And I've been with the product about 26 years because I was a dealer beforehand, and there's plenty of people that have been with the product that are here even longer than that. So we have a lot of tribal knowledge because we've been doing this a long time, but at the same time, while the voicemail side is a key part of what we do, one of the things we've been very good at over the years is staying in touch with the newer technologies like unified messaging and business process and mobility and all of that. But even those things we started doing early. So, we have a 20-year history in unified messaging, and this means the product you would look at, our product, has been doing this for 20 years. We haven't changed products 4 times along the way like our competitors. Our products are extremely robust, well-engineered, and have lots and lots of time in the field. And of course, other people recognize this besides just us saying that. It's always easy for us to say it. But if you go out there and talk to the consultants and look out in the world of people who look and monitor our industry, you'll find people like Frost & Sullivan and Gartner talking about our position and where we are. Gartner actually calls us out as the best-of-breed solution in these areas. And almost anybody that does any surveys will recognize it. We've been out there a long time. We don't do the broad piece like some of our competitors. We don't have a PBX switch. We don't have routers. We just have this communications core that does voicemail, unified messaging, unified communications, and some custom solutions. And because we can narrow that focus down, we've become a recognized leader in those areas. If you look at our customers, it's always interesting to think about how we got to where we are. And this is a very interesting slide because the reason these are our really strong areas, particularly healthcare and education, is those were the first people who took advantage of voicemail in the early days. Healthcare and education were very early customers for Octel, VMX, and all those systems. And so since they bought systems early, they are now the ones that have the systems that are reaching end of life, and ours is just an ideal solution for them. Within the enterprise, because the enterprises tend to be so complex with multiple environments, multiple systems, multiple email systems, the interoperability piece makes us a strong player in the enterprise as well. So if you look at those kind of numbers, we have over 1,500 healthcare organizations. We have over 1,100 higher ed, and then 20% of the Fortune 500 are using our product. Some of them only in one location, some of them throughout. If we look at a couple of customers, typical customers who had the end-of-life challenge, a couple of them always stick out in our mind. One of them, City of Baltimore, because they were one of the most thorough. A few years back, they started an initiative to replace their system, and they knew exactly what they wanted. They put together an excellent RFQ, followed by an RFP, followed by some very in-depth analysis of all the competitors, and we went through all that process, and we were very happy that we actually won that. And what makes us even more happy is years later when we talk to them, they're still very happy with that decision. They're very happy with how the whole process went from the analysis of what they wanted through the cutover of the system to what's actually going on out there today. So it's always good to have references. And for most people, if you're looking at replacing end-of-life systems, you probably would want to talk to somebody in your industry, in your general size, maybe in your geographical area, who's already done that, and we can provide those kind of references. Like I said, we've been doing this a long, long time. We have over 10,000 customers out there, and the odds of us having one in your city, in your space, are pretty strong. And we can line you up with those as you get a little closer. Most of our larger customers will, if you call them as a reference, they'll say one of the reasons they went with us was because they called their references. And they basically went out and called people in their same kind of general space and got great reviews. So we are in this market space as the major player. If you're replacing an end-of-life or a coming end-of-life voice messaging system, we are the ones that dominate that market. But of course, as you will find out if you haven't already when you go to do this, the list of what you actually have to do suddenly grows for more than just replace the system. And City of Baltimore discovered that as they looked at replacing their Octel system, at the same time, they had other teams looking at a migration to voice over IP, which wasn't going to happen in the right time frame to have it all happen at once, but would impact the systems that they chose. They realized that they had more complex call trees than most people, and they were having trouble finding systems that scaled up to what they needed. And riding right behind all this, of course, was a mobility initiative, which, as they started looking at these new systems, they realized that even your mobility initiative is going to have a direct impact on what you do to replace your legacy voicemail. So if you look at kind of where we stand, and one of the reasons that people tend to like our product as a replacement, first of all, we've got a lot of time in, and that time equates to adding features. So as I said, back when you bought your legacy voicemail system, we were on the market competing for that business. We had all those legacy call features, and we still do. We don't take them out of the system. Very few people do a lot of in-depth analysis of the call processing, voicemail, and menu features. They kind of assume that any system they buy would have all of that, and that's a dangerous assumption. Because remember, the systems you're looking at from anyone else but us are new. They were redesigned when the manufacturer moved from their old voicemail system to something new and completely different. That's why they end-of-lifed the ones that you're stuck with now. So be careful to understand what you're getting in terms of the older features as well. We have great licensing. We don't license individual mailboxes. It makes migrations very easy. We have the largest and most accurate set of alternate telephone user interfaces, meaning an interface that will mimic the other systems, the legacy systems. We have one for ARIA, Serenade, Intuity Audix, Meridian Mail, the New Point or the Centigram interface, Adomo, which is very, very similar to the Aura messaging, and then Kinesis and Repartee. So those really minimize the impact on your system, and it is one of the things you should be looking at when you are evaluating those players. Lots of people will tell you they have those interfaces, but you should get a hold of one of them because in most cases they map the top level of keys and nothing else, which doesn't really do you any good. You still have to retrain users. Ours are accurate top to bottom. And then, in general, in the world of legacy call processing, you're going to find we have the most experience out there. Now, the next thing, of course, Baltimore figured out is that they had this transition to voice over IP coming, but it wasn't going to be in the same time frame as the Octel replacement. So, they realized they had to be careful that what they purchased would survive that move. And not all systems would. I don't think at the time when they started this, they were even sure what their direction was for voice over IP. So they needed to make sure they didn't build any roadblocks in, and that's pretty easy to do with our system. The investment protection that comes with our system sort of starts with the fact that we can hook to anything you have out there today, but we also can hook to anything that you buy. So moving from an older TDM type integration on an older switch to a new SIP-based integration is very painless. There might be a piece of software you have to buy or something along those lines, depends. But in terms of moving users, you literally just go into the mailbox and say now they're on that other phone system. There's no retraining, there's no changes in the system at all. And you can stage a migration, 100 users or 1,000 users at a time, whatever fits your actual plan for moving over to the VoIP environment. A single CXE system can connect up to 10 different types of phone systems. Not 10 phone systems, there's actually no limit to the number of phone systems, but 10 different types. So your ability to migrate through any complex organizational change from an infrastructure point of view really is guaranteed with our product. And then the high call volumes piece, one of the great things about our product is it does scale from 4 ports to 500 ports. And that 500 port number, I understand, is going up shortly because, yes, we actually have customers that are already maxed out on the 500 port range. But the high call volumes was important. And it isn't just for voice messaging. A lot of people, particularly with the older systems, still have a lot of business process threaded through those. Menus, 24-hour-a-day menus, specialist menus, voice libraries, all sorts of things, all of which we can do on our system without any problem. It's back to that full legacy feature set piece. And out at City of Baltimore, they take over 120,000 calls a month to their menus without a hitch at all. And then the last thing is looking at mobility. Now, mobility is the trickiest challenge when you're looking at a voicemail replacement because mobility is the newest thing you're looking at, and it's not very well defined within an industry in general. And there's so many concerns that are not only architecture but security and even legal issues that all become part of this. So you need to make sure the direction you go in that replacement isn't going to limit you in your mobility strategy. Adam is the AVST Total Office Manager, and this is a software package for mobile employees, and it basically rolls together some things we've had for years and some new things in such a way that you can look at your mobile people and give them a specific license that gives them the maximum set of tools to help with their productivity and their responsiveness. And this is by far the broadest UC kind of mobile feature set that you're going to find out there. We're not going to be able to talk about anything. We do have separate Adam webinars you could probably find and come, but we're going to go through here real quickly, thinking in terms of as you're replacing your legacy system. So we have a number of slides that help us with the Adam messages. And I always like to start off with just two quick things. First of all, as good as we are at taking messages, and we're very, very good, wouldn't it be better to complete the call? Would anyone disagree that an incoming call to one of your employees would be better off completed so there was no return call and tag and all that time wasted? So one of the things your replacement system can do that your current voicemail can't do is get much better at completing calls. And secondly, as we go through this process, outside callers kind of don't like voicemail. And the reason it's easy to understand, you call somebody, they're not there, you hear, "Hi, this is Neil." Well, you knew that because you called me. "Sorry I didn't answer your call," and you know that because you're in the machine. "Leave me a call and I'll get back to you as soon as I can," which means nothing at all. So we don't really do a very good job at keeping the caller in the loop with what's going on. Adam's going to fix both those. It's going to fix the ability to get more calls completed. It's going to give you much better call completion rates, and it's going to give your callers really good information to help them make decisions as well. And one of the ways it's going to do that, this Adam message here, Adam tells others when you're away. One of the things about when calls come in and they don't get answered and they go to voicemail, the caller doesn't really know what that means. But what can happen now is you can actually have somebody get a greeting that the system builds based on their calendar and instant messaging status. So when you call me, instead of hearing, "Hi, this is Neil, leave me a message, beep," you could hear, "Hi, this is Neil. I'm in a meeting right now. I'll be out at 10 o'clock. And I've set a callback expectation now. And after that, I can give the caller options. Say, "Operator, try another person or leave a message." So if you're working on a project with me and someone else, it's very easy for you to ask for that other person. And now we're back to that: complete the call if we can, give the user as much information as you can to help them, and all of that needs to happen, not by requiring the user to do things. You know, you could record a new greeting every time you went in a meeting, said, "Hi, I'm in a meeting and I'll be out at 10 o'clock. But you're not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. But there is something that does know when you're in the meeting, of course, and that's your calendar. So why don't we just reach out and touch your calendar when a call comes in, find out what's going on? And that's what Adam does. Adam uses context. Context means other pieces of information within your enterprise that are useful for what we do, we now can share. We can go out and find out your link status says you haven't been at your desk for an hour. So we could say something like, he's in the building, but he's away from his desk. Or your calendar says you're in a meeting, or you're away on vacation for a week. All of that can be used not only to decide how to process a call, but to create a greeting for the caller. So we're now starting to give the caller a much more useful experience. And we can link to the calendars in Exchange or Office 365 or Google. The only instant messaging integration we have right now is Lync or OCS, and we're working on more of those. But both of those become integral in terms of better handling calls. Now, you may or may not want to take a call when you're in a meeting, so this greeting might say, "Hi, I'll be out at 11," and send them to voicemail. Or if you have our mobile client, perhaps you're going to have your data channel screen your calls so that you get a little pop-up saying, "Mark Reed is online. Do you want to take this call or not? Or do you want to play him a little custom greeting?" So there's all sorts of things that get tied together with this context piece. One of the most interesting ones, and one of the ones that's gathered, I think, the most press this year, is about location. Now, you have a presence engine, perhaps, if you have a Lync or something else, but that's not really all that healthy of presence. What it really knows is whether you've touched your keyboard or not. But if you aren't there, it has no clue where you are. But there is something that does know where you are, and that's your mobile phone. Your mobile phone actually knows where you are, because it has to connect to cell towers. So if you have our mobile app, that means CXE can know where you are, and based on your location, it can handle calls differently. So in my case, when I'm at home in the morning, and it knows I'm at home, and it's early in the morning, I come in kind of early, so 5:30, I'm up and moving around. I don't really want to take calls at 5:30, sends my calls to voicemail. As soon as I drive out of my driveway, my phone knows I'm not at home anymore, and I'm fair game, and calls will now be sent to my mobile so I can answer them on the Bluetooth. As soon as I walk into my office, it knows I'm there, calls go to my desk. All of that is automatic. We use that location context to be much more efficient at figuring out how to get to you. And we'll play greetings as well. So this is very easy to do. This is not a Big Brother app where our system now tracks you around and can print a report. This is a matter of you go in as a user and define the applications that will be useful to you. This is just showing a screen that I did here in the office. Bothell is where our engineering office is here, and I went in and built this one. And then I built one at home. And now I have 3 locations: home, office, and other. Other turning out to be a very, very good location as well, because other basically means mobile phone. Adam goes mobile when you do. Adam rolls together the full suite of CXE mobile tools. Unified messaging, a hands-free user speech interface, extremely handy for when you're in your car. The personal assistant, all the call routing and context we talked about. And the mobile client, which lets you get to your messages and manage your calls and screen your incoming calls. And all of this is deployed in such a way that it'll fit within your mobile initiatives. And most people are pretty comfortable with the way we've done it. Mobile clients, we have 2 of them. We have one for Android, and we have one for iPhone, or one for iOS, I should say, because it runs on a tablet as well. They both have the native look and feel. Once you have the personal assistant license for the user, they just go to the relative app store and download it. There's no complex having to get them files or any of the other things you have to do for some of the other mobile clients. Along the mobility side, we also throw in a little mobile admin client. Our basic admin client is a 32-bit Windows client, and what it really does is gives you an incredibly easy-to-use admin tool, but it is not web-based. That's why it's incredibly easy to use. At the same time, when you're away from that client, there are certain things you have to do, like unlock a mailbox perhaps, or in the middle of the night when the snowstorm rolls in, you want to change the answer mode configuration. Those kind of things are supported in a small web client. Now, this is actually a slide showing an iPhone mini or iPad mini, but it works with any browser. You work with any browser you have, this will work fine for. So you'll see us kind of grow this mobile client and add more important features to it in the next couple of software releases. Adam provides a personal touch. So this is probably the most unique thing that our product does, and one of the things that our customers, I think, really appreciate. If I'm pulling into the parking lot and I'm getting ready to come into work in the morning, and my phone rings just as I pull into my parking space, and I answer it, and it says, "You have a call from Ann Rude. Would you like to accept the call, reject the call, or acknowledge the call?" Well, I know that Ann and I need to talk over the webinar, and I don't really want to do it sitting in my car or even holding my phone up to my ear as I walk in. So I say acknowledge, and basically it says record an acknowledgement message. I say, "Hi, Ann, listen, it's Neil. I'm just getting into work. Give me about 5 minutes. I'll be at my desk, and I'll call you." So you can give personal acknowledgments to people without committing to take the call, based on what's more important, what you're doing right now or that call. So that's a great tool. That's been in our product, by the way, somewhere around 12 years, I believe. It's not a new thing for us, but you've probably never heard of it anywhere else before. It's an incredible tool. It's even better now because we can use it when I'm sitting in a meeting. Before, answering the call to find out who it wasn't really, that didn't always work. But what I can do now is I can have my calls sent to the data channel automatically. Remember, I can set up a rule that says when I'm in a meeting, I want to screen my calls on my data channel. And now I get a little pop-up here. And one of the things I can do with the pop-up is push a button and automatically, without making any noise at all, send you something that says, "Neil Butler was unable to take your call, but we'll call you back in 30 minutes. So I can silently screen incoming calls like, let's face it, most of us do for incoming emails. There's always stuff happening at work important enough to get you out of the meeting. With email, at least you could triage for it, and now you can do it for phone calls as well. Adam connects to the cloud. We talked about that in an earlier slide. As people decide what types of things they want to take advantage of in the cloud, we make sure our product supports that. And what that primarily means right now, from a unified communications point of view, is we connect to Office 365 and Gmail for all this functionality that I was just talking about. We're pretty much independent in terms of we don't really care what your groupware infrastructure is. As long as that feature exists within that infrastructure, we will find a way to tap it. The speech interface is probably the single best productivity tool to give to a mobile worker. I've had a Call Express mailbox for, I can't even imagine how many years it's been now. But since we've gone to speech, that's all I use. I could not tell you what keys to press to send a message anymore. Everything's done with speech because it's just too easy. It works when I'm driving in my car. It works when I'm, anywhere I want to use it at all. So the speech piece is something you probably want to evaluate. Plenty of you start out by thinking, I'm going to replace my voicemail without any of these new features. But it's a good thing to know about these new features and maybe buy one resource of speech to be testing this and get a feeling for it. We also have a full speech automated attendant capability that can be very, very handy in terms of lowering the load on the receptionist, in terms of even just for internal callers. Sometimes your internal callers are 40% of the load that the receptionist is getting, and just by putting in a speech interface where your users can go self-service, you get the value of it right then and there. University of Toronto is another person that we went through the very complex process in terms of system evaluations, and they had a number of extra challenges. Besides the other challenges that we saw, they also wanted to start consolidating. The year before, they had consolidated their data infrastructure, whereas they had 3 campuses with complete silos and everything when they started. They had taken their Exchange and groupware environment and centralized it. They had decent data connections, and they realized there was a great cost savings there. So one of the things they came into this with was a desire to centralize their telephony infrastructure as well. What they did not want to do was replace. They were primarily Centrex, and they didn't want to replace that. So they were looking at options to do that. And in our case, our system does that very easily. We can put components out at multiple sites and tie them into a single integrated system. So in this case, you see they had 24 ports out at each of their 2 remote sites. The 144 ports at their larger main site, all of these function as a single integrated platform. These aren't three voicemails networked together. This is just one voicemail system. And we have up to 20 of those separate call servers, and the distance that they'll go has to do with your data connectivity. Certainly anywhere in the United States you can spread these across, and we're doing some testing right now with some of it has a centralized location, and they're also going to have call servers in Europe and call servers on the Pacific Rim, all on the same system. And we've done the initial testing with latency, and it looks like it's going to be fine. So you probably don't have an infrastructure that we can't actually consolidate down. One of the other things we offer in this architecture is survivability. As we look at doing more and more with these systems, it becomes more important that they sort of match your corporate dictates in terms of reliability, high availability. And we've done a great job at engineering this product so that when part of it fails, everything else keeps on going. So this is just a simple two-site installation where I have a couple of call servers at two different locations. If a call server fails, the other call server will take over, and that gives us a level of physical redundancy. And remember, with 20 call servers, I can actually put 2 call servers out at 10 separate sites, and there's no one that can come even close to matching that. If the system server fails and I don't have a backup system server, call servers still work, but I can't get to my messages because they're on the system server. But as an option, I can provide a pair of system servers running in active-passive mode, so that if the active one fails, the passive one takes over automatically. Everything just keeps right on working. You don't lose calls in progress or anything. Alarms go off and somebody comes and fixes it and then switches it back. And then I can actually have full geo redundancy where I put a system server. This is showing a third one, but it could also be the second one that goes remote. Same kind of thing. If I lose my entire main site, the administrator can promote that remote one. It will find whatever call servers it can connect to, and you'll be in business. So everything from everything on a single server right up to complete hardware and geo redundancy available. All those options are there. And then, of course, the second thing that going into it, even before we got involved, that University of Toronto was interested in was unified messaging. They had done enough homework to know that that was a great productivity tool for them, but they had challenges, like so many companies do, in terms of the various laws that cover retention and discoverability and all these pieces. So they were a great customer to talk to because, as one of our earlier slides showed, we've been doing unified messaging for 20 years. We've pretty much figured it out, and we did that by customers telling us what they had to have, and by us putting various versions together. And now our system, the strength of our system is its flexibility. Things like having the message store be where you want it to have. It can be in your Exchange system, it can be in your Office 365 system, your Gmail system, or the messages can stay on CX and still be accessed from an email client, or they can stay on CX and be secure where they can only be accessed by our web client, so they can't get out of the system at all. All of those options are available, and all the devices are supported, and we have a whole webinar on unified messaging that if this is of interest to you, it's probably worth attending because we are by far the leader in the market. And the great thing about our system is, as you look at, maybe even after all this wonderful information, you're thinking, no, I'm still just going to replace my voicemail. But at least now you know if you do it with our product, you'll be safe as you look at these other initiatives, and you can add them as you need to. You can start with the UC Voice feature set, which is basically the replacement for your voicemail. You can move into Atom or move into just maybe just unified messaging. None of our systems are a all or nothing choice. In other words, we don't expect you to buy a unified messaging license for everyone. Not everyone would use it. Or a speech license for all your ports, or a personal assistant. Only mobile users would need those. So your ability to scale from simple voicemail right up through business process, and business process is our ability to write custom applications that use our features in our product along with other applications on your site. So think of things like speech access to a database, or DTMF voice access to a database, those type of things. So hopefully what we've done is shown you the simple part, the legacy replacement part, we're ideal for with all the features we have. But we're also in line to help you with whatever else is going to come along the way. If it's not part of this original initiative, but you know it's coming down the road, at least now you understand that our system can help you in all of those areas, and it'll never be a roadblock for you. we have some questions?
We do have a few questions coming in. As a reminder, if you've got that section minimized, you can use the orange arrow in the upper right, and you'll find the question pane toward the bottom. First question regarding, I think this one came in around the time we were talking about Atom and the mobility app. Can you comment on BlackBerry support?
Yeah. So we actually started building our mobile clients 2.5 years ago, and there were 3 of them. There was a BlackBerry client. But halfway through that, BlackBerry discontinued the APIs that were supported because they were moving to their new version. And then they just sort of sat there for 2 years, and so we discontinued that, and we don't have a native client. That being said, there's still a lot of things we do with BlackBerries. If you're storing your email messages in your voicemail, like an Exchange or wherever, and you're using a BlackBerry Enterprise server to push your email messages, you're going to push your voicemail messages. We have a small web client. If you're a personal assistant user and you want to be able to change your schedule on the fly, we have a small web client that works. We have the ability to send messages out to BlackBerry devices with embedded phone numbers, so that when you see it and it says you have a new message, you can scroll down, click it, and dial automatically and call in and get your messages. So there's a lot of things we do, but we have no, right now, active program for building a native client on BlackBerry until everyone sees where they're going in the market.
Okay, next question. We use Microsoft Forefront Identity Management to manage user directory data in all applications that have external directories. Does AVST have a web services-based, or other API for managing user directory attributes?
Yes, and that's kind of an open-ended question for what you want to do with it, but we do have a published API, a web services API, that lets you manipulate the database, which means add users, delete users, make changes to users, etc. And we have a full set of APIs and applications where you can also manage calls and everything else along those lines. So if offline somebody wants to call, we can talk about what kind of things they're trying to do, and I can verify for sure that the API supports those functions.
Okay, great. Another question on the mobility topic. So can a user decide not to have Atom give out their present status to a caller?
Yeah, everything is controllable on this system. We tend to load a user up with all these features because that way we get to show them to you. But you can have, you can not have, I'm going to use the calendar as an example because that has a number of levels. You can not have Atom know about your calendar at all. I mean, that's an option. You can have it know about your calendar but not say anything other than you're in a meeting and not tell you your return times. You can have it tell your return times for meetings but not announce when you're on vacation. All of those things are configurable. And then a user at any time can also override it all by saying, you know what, just send phones directly to this phone. You know, send everything right to this phone right now until I tell you otherwise. So there's a lot of user control available.
Okay, great. Okay, another question on Atom. So does Atom route the call, let's see, let me make sure I understand the question. Oh, how does Atom route the call directly to a user if they've given out their cell phone number?
So ideally, you don't give out your cell phone number, and the reason being is if you just give out our number, we can make that call to the cell phone when you want and then not when you don't want, plus we'll protect that cell phone number. But that being said, you can forward your cell phone, if you have a DID, to your DID as opposed to your voicemail, and it'll forward into our system, and then we'll know because that call came in the way it did, whatever other choices, whether you just want to take a message or you want to have it call you at home or something else along those lines. So it works better if you bring it into our system earlier, gives you mobile number protection and things like that, but it will still work on a forwarded call.
Okay, great. Next question, can a system server be a primary for a call server but also a failover for another site's call server?
So, system, we're mixing some terms there. You probably wouldn't...
It's a failover issue, right?
Yeah, so you probably wouldn't have two systems. You probably wouldn't have two systems. You'd probably have one system where call servers from both sites connected to it. If you're actually talking about putting in two separate call express systems, then they wouldn't fail over back and forth at all. But that's another question where we should get together offline, and I'll ask you a few questions about your architecture and figure out what you're trying to do and make sure that you get a good answer.
Okay, great. Thanks, Neil. I'll make sure to get you that info
thank you.
from the question asker after the webinar concludes here. And actually, that looks like that is the last question. There's a comment here. We didn't include this in the slides, but we may have considered doing that. We actually have a promotion for the Avaya product trade-in. So this covers the modular messaging that Neil mentioned at the beginning, as well as Octel and some of the other legacy systems. And this promotion offers some discounts as you trade in that system and move toward an AVST CXE system. There's a discount off the base port license, and we'll also throw in the alternate TUI license for free. So what I will do is when we send out the slides to each of you who are attending, we'll go ahead and include a link to the promotion details on that as well. And if you're interested in learning more about that, we'll make sure that we get you hooked up with someone at AVST who can give you more details on that. So it looks like that wraps up the questions. Neil, do you want to go ahead and wrap us up?
Yeah, I just once again thank you everybody for coming. We try and make these as informative as possible. It's always a balance. This is one of our longer ones. We discussed this when we started. This is a few slides more than average. But, a lot of people stayed on. That's a good thing. If we're not covering something you want to see covered, let us know, and we'll gladly do that. If you want more detail or less detail, let us know. And just as long as you guys keep coming to these, we will definitely keep giving them. Thank you.
And I'll just say thanks again, and everyone have a great day.